The crisp March wind swept through the small town of Redemption, carrying with it the scent of wild blossoms and the joyous peal of church bells. Inside the old oak church, the afternoon sun streamed through stained glass windows, painting luminous streaks across the worn wooden floor. Amelia, in her early 20s, stood before the altar, her heart pounding like a galloping horse. Her pristine white wedding dress, meticulously embroidered by her own hands, embraced her slender figure, highlighting the gentle yet vibrant beauty of this Western girl. A radiant smile graced her lips, her blue eyes sparkling with happiness. Amelia believed today marked the beginning of a new life, a life she would share with Thomas, the man she believed was her destiny. Guests had gathered in full, their whispers of congratulations, the soft giggles of children, and the faint scent of wild flowers on the altar blending into the solemn atmosphere. The priest stood ready, his Bible open, awaiting the sacred moment. Time stretched on, minute by minute, terrifyingly slow. The smile on Amelia's face gradually stiffened, then vanished, replaced by a growing confusion, then annoying anxiety. Thomas didn't arrive. The clock on the church wall ticked by, each click a tiny knife slicing into her fragile hope. The silence in the church became heavy, suffocating, swallowing the earlier murmurs. Congratulations turned into whispers of pity, sympathetic glances filled with awkwardness. Amelia's mother, her face ashen, tried to reassure her daughter, but her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her father, a man usually strong and weathered by life's storms, now stood silently, his eyes filled with helplessness and sorrow as he watched his daughter Dot as the sun began to set, painting the western sky in hues of orange and deep purple. Amelia remained standing, motionless like a stone statue. The white dress was no longer a symbol of love, but a shroud for shattered dreams, for dignity trampled. Tears did not fall, perhaps because the pain was too immense, freezing all emotion. But her heart felt as if thousands of shards were piercing it, each beat a sharp pang. Her world, built upon absolute faith in love and happiness, had utterly collapsed, leaving no fragment to cling to. The feeling of betrayal, humiliation, and profound grief plunged her into an abyss of despair. From that moment, the sparkle left. Amelia's eyes, her smile vanished forever, and her soul closed off, like a wild flower withered in the parched desert, devoid of life. After that devastating event, Amelia could not remain in Redemption. Every street corner, every familiar face, reminded her of the profound pain, of the day her life took a different turn. She left without a word, carrying a broken heart and a fragmented soul. She returned to Willow Creek, the small town where she was born and raised, a more secluded place with fewer passers-by, nestled among rolling hills and sun-baked grasslands. It was the only place she felt she could find some peace, some refuge from curious stares and whispered pity. Her family owned a small, old tailor shop hidden in a quiet alley, tucked between the general store and the blacksmith's forge. The old shop, with its familiar scent of fabric and wood dust, became Amelia's entire world. Her life became monotonous and frighteningly secluded. Each day, she woke early, when dew still clung to the ancient oak trees. She brewed a pot of hot tea, the faint aroma of herbal tea drifting through the air, and sat at her old sewing machine. A machine that had served her mother and grandmother for generations. The clatter of metal, the rustle of silk fabric were the only sounds breaking the silence in the shop. She meticulously cut fabric, sewing each stitch with care, creating simple, yet elegant dresses for a few women in town, those who weren't too concerned with her painful past. Sewing became a therapy, a way for her to escape painful thoughts, haunting memories. Each stitch felt like a prayer, each piece of fabric a protective shell for her heart. She rarely went out, only when absolutely necessary, to the general store, for needles and thread, or to the post office to send a rare letter to distant relatives. When she met neighbors, she merely nodded a polite greeting, her eyes always downcast, avoiding all curious or sympathetic gazes. Questions, even those born of kindness, only made her wound ache more, like scratches on healing skin. Amelia built an invisible wall around herself, tall and sturdy, allowing no one to enter her inner world. She lived like a shadow, quiet and almost invisible, existing only through her stitches and fabric scraps. A smile was a luxury, a faded memory, and joy seemed to have abandoned her forever, sinking deep into the well of despair. One late afternoon, as the golden light began to cast long shadows on the dusty road leading into town, Amelia sat by her tailor shop window, her eyes vacant, staring into the distance. Her gaze inadvertently fell upon a figure on horseback slowly approaching. It was a tall man, rugged in appearance, wearing a faded, worn cowboy hat that almost completely obscured his face. He wore a faded, dark blue flannel shirt and worn jeans, looking simple yet exuding the tough, experienced aura of someone accustomed to a harsh life on horseback. His horse, a chestnut mare with a black mane, walked steadily, each hoof beat rhythmic on the dry ground. Amelia had never seen this man in Willow Creek. This small town rarely saw strangers. He stopped in front of Mr. Peterson's general store, dismounted slowly, his movements decisive but unhurried, as if everything was carefully calculated. He tied the reins to a wooden post, then entered the store. Amelia only caught a fleeting glimpse of his angular face, sun-darkened skin, and deep-set eyes holding many untold stories. Later, she overheard from curious neighbors that the man's name was Ethan, a cowboy who had bought the old Miller family ranch, located a few miles west of town, hidden among thorny bushes and large rocks. The ranch had been abandoned for years, leaving only crumbling walls and a dry well. The fact that someone had come to live there and restore the place was a big surprise for the entire town. Ethan lived alone, seemingly without family or friends. He rarely came to town, and when he did, he simply bought necessities and left immediately, not lingering to chat or socialize. He didn't say much, just nodded greetings and occasionally exchanged a few clipped words with Mr. Peterson, the store owner. His presence was like a strange breeze, a mystery weaving its way into Amelia's already quiet life. She didn't know much about him, but the existence of this quiet cowboy began to subtly infiltrate her monotonous thoughts like a small, flickering flame in the dark. One day, as the afternoon light began to fade, Ethan appeared before Amelia's tailor shop. He stood there, tall and silent, blocking some of the light filtering into the shop. Amelia started, looking up, her needle almost pricking her finger. Her heart beat a little faster, a sense of unease creeping in. He said nothing, simply held out a flannel shirt with a tear in the shoulder, a long, sharp rip, as if from a thorn. "I need this fixed." His voice was deep and gravelly, like pebbles rolling on a dirt road. Amelia nodded, taking the shirt. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the coarse fabric, still smelling of smoke, road dust, and the distinct scent of hard labor. In subsequent visits, Ethan often brought clothes for repair, from an old leather jacket to faded jeans. He never spoke much, simply handed over items, received them back, and paid promptly, without a single word of bargaining. Amelia was the same. She only asked necessary questions about size, fabric type, or the nature of the tear. There were no pleasantries, no forced social smiles. The silence between them sometimes made Amelia feel suffocated, as if the air itself was thick, but at other times it was a strangely comfortable quiet. She didn't need to try to hide her sadness, and he didn't try to pry or delve into her past. However, Amelia began to notice small, quiet gestures from Ethan, subtle actions that only a keen observer would perceive. One time when she was struggling with a stuck window, the old wood swollen and difficult to open, he walked by, paused, and without a word, used his strength to loosen the wooden frame, helping her open the window with ease. Another time, when she was carrying a heavy bolt of fabric from the wagon, a large and cumbersome roll that obscured her view, he unexpectedly appeared, gently took the fabric, and placed it inside the shop, then quietly walked away again. Sometimes as she sat sewing, her gaze would inadvertently drift to the window, and she would feel a quiet gaze from across the street, where he was tying his horse or speaking with Mr. Peterson. When she looked up, he would have already turned away, as if he hadn't been looking at all, like an illusion. These actions were not flirtatious, nor were there any flowery words. They were genuine, unostentatious acts of care, stemming from an innate desire to help. It made Amelia feel flustered, but it also made her heart, long frozen, feel a faint warmth seep in, like the first ray of spring sunshine. She still kept her distance, still remained reserved, but Ethan's presence, even if only for brief moments, had begun to change the rhythm of her monotonous life, bringing a new breeze, however gentle. One rainy afternoon, heavy drops tapping on the roof and windows, Ethan came to the tailor shop to pick up his mended jacket. He stood waiting in a corner, his gaze idly sweeping around the small shop. Suddenly, his eyes landed on an old photograph, placed on a shelf, nestled among spools of thread and fabric scraps. It was a picture of Amelia and Thomas from a picnic many years ago, when they were young and full of dreams. The photograph had faded with time, but her radiant smile and Thomas's hopeful eyes were still visible. It was a picture she hadn't had time to put away, a relic of a painful past. Ethan stood there, silently looking at the photograph, as if lost in distant memories. Amelia felt a strange tension in the air, a heavy stillness that she couldn't name. When he turned back, his deep-set eyes held an indescribable sadness, a hint of regret, and even a touch of remorse. "Thomas," he said softly, his voice deeper than usual, like the wind whispering through a crack in the door. "He was a friend of mine." Amelia froze. Her hands dropped, the sewing needle clattering to the wooden floor, a small sound that echoed in the sudden silence. She had never imagined that Ethan could be connected to her painful past, to the man who had shattered her life. Thomas and Ethan? Two completely different men, one charming, lively, always drawing attention. The other quiet, reserved, almost invisible. How could they have been friends? Amelia's world felt turned upside down once more. Ethan said nothing more. He simply looked at her, his eyes seeming to want to say something, to explain, but he held back, no words escaping his lips. This truth hit Amelia like a splash of cold water, making everything feel more complicated, more tangled. The old pain resurfaced, mixed with confusion, suspicion, and a touch of disappointment. She had thought Ethan was a stranger, someone unconnected to her past, a new beginning. But now he was a part of it, an invisible thread pulling her back to painful memories out after that day. Amelia grew even more distant from Ethan, she feared. The truth, feared the painful memories his presence might stir. She feared he would say things she didn't want to hear, things that would tear open her wound again. Ethan still came to the tailor shop, still silent, still bringing items for repair. But Amelia felt an invisible wall had been erected between them, taller and sturdier than ever. She didn't want to delve into the past, and she feared Ethan would do just that, forcing her to confront what she had tried so hard to bury. That winter arrived earlier and was harsher than usual. Blizzard after blizzard descended, like colossal white curtains, enveloping Willow Creek in a thick blanket of snow. Temperatures plummeted, roads were blocked, and life in the small town became more difficult than ever. Amelia's tailor shop saw few customers, and she struggled to make ends meet, each day passing in worry and scarcity. One night, as Amelia slept soundly, the church bell's alarm rang out shrilly, tearing through the quiet night, bringing panic and fear. She sprang up, ran outside, and saw a horrifying sight. Flames erupted fiercely from Mr. Peterson's general store, which also served as the town's main food supply. A strong, biting wind caused the fire to spread rapidly like a hungry monster, threatening to engulf nearby homes, including Amelia's tailor shop. Everyone in town rushed into the street, panicked and helpless. Water in the well was frozen, and putting out the fire became incredibly difficult, almost impossible. Amidst the chaos and shouts, Amelia saw Ethan. He said nothing, but his actions were decisive and surprisingly effective. He and a few other men, their faces smudged with ash, struggled to tear down parts of the burning roof, creating a fire break to prevent the flames from spreading to neighboring houses. He carried heavy buckets of water, pouring them onto the roaring inferno, bucket after bucket, tirelessly. Amelia, though trembling with fear, could not stand idly by. She and other women helped move belongings out of houses at risk of burning, carried the injured out of harm's way, and bandaged their wounds. She saw Ethan rush into the heart of the raging fire, disregarding his own life, to rescue a child trapped in the rubble. His eyes were resolute, without a hint of fear or hesitation, only determination and courage. When the fire was finally brought under control, it was almost dawn, the first rays of sunrise peeking through the thick black smoke. The general store was nothing but a pile of charred ruins, but other houses had been saved. Everyone was exhausted, their faces grimy, but their eyes shone with deep gratitude and admiration for Ethan. He wasn't a hero who spoke eloquent words. He didn't seek praise, but he was a hero of action, a silent hero. This ordeal completely shattered the invisible wall between Amelia and Ethan. They had faced danger together, fought against the destructive power of the flames together. Amelia looked at Ethan, no longer seeing Thomas's shadow in him, no longer seeing the pain of the past. Instead, she saw a strong, reliable man, full of courage and sincerity. A deeper connection, unspoken, had formed between them on that fateful night. After the fire, Willow Creek was plunged into desolation and scarcity. The harsh winter made everything worse, cold winds whistling through ruined houses, bringing bone-chilling cold. But it was precisely in these difficult circumstances that the community's spirit of unity strengthened more than ever. Ethan, with his strength and experience, became a pillar in the rebuilding effort. He not only helped reconstruct damaged houses and clear snow-covered roads, but also shared his reserved food supplies with struggling families without a single complaint. Amelia, though her heart still ached, could not stand by. She used her sewing skills to mend clothes and blankets for those who had lost their homes, providing them with a little warmth during the freezing winter days. She cooked simple but nutritious meals and brought them to those who were working, the men and women exhausted from their heavy labor. During this process, she and Ethan often worked side by side, shoulder to shoulder, with few words exchanged. They didn't talk much, but small actions spoke for them, becoming their own language. Ethan often left a bundle of dry firewood outside Amelia's tailor shop each morning, before she even woke up. He would quietly place a bag of fresh apples from his ranch, or a freshly caught fish on her doorstep. Sometimes as Amelia sat sewing, she would see Ethan outside, mending a fallen fence, clearing snow from the shop entrance, or simply standing there, watching her quietly. She would look at him, and he would nod gently, a nod full of understanding, then continue his work. Gradually, the silence between them was no longer a barrier, but a deep understanding, a profound connection of souls. Amelia began to tell Ethan about her fears, about the nightmares of abandonment that haunted her every night, about the pain she had endured. Ethan listened patiently, without judgment, without interrupting. He didn't offer empty advice, simply stayed by her side, a steady presence, a shoulder for her to lean on. One evening, as they sat by a campfire, the flickering flames illuminating their faces, Ethan told Amelia about Thomas. He said Thomas was a good man, but weak and easily swayed by life's temptations. Thomas had been drawn into a dangerous group of swindlers and had to flee to save his life, with no other choice. Ethan had tried to stop Thomas, had done everything he could to help his friend, but failed. He had arrived in redemption on the wedding day, but it was too late. Thomas had already vanished. He hadn't wanted to reveal the truth for fear of hurting Amelia further, afraid she wouldn't be able to bear any more pain. Amelia listened, tears streaming down her cheeks, mixing with the lingering streaks of ash. The pain was still there, but now it was no longer an open wound, but a scar that had begun to heal, a part of the past that had been accepted. She understood that Thomas hadn't intentionally hurt her, and Ethan had been there, silently protecting her in his own way, even when she didn't know it. This truth, though painful, brought a sense of liberation, a strange peace. Amelia felt a burden lifted, a heavy stone in her heart removed. She looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with gratitude and admiration. He wasn't the one who saved her from her pain, but he had helped her find the path to heal herself, to stand up and move forward. Spring arrived, bringing warmth and new life to Willow Creek. The air, once sharp with winter's bite, now carried the sweet perfume of wild honeysuckle and freshly turned earth. Wildflowers, in hues of violet, gold, and crimson, bloomed across the lush green fields, stretching towards the endless blue sky. The chirping of birds, a symphony of renewal, filled the mornings. The town gradually recovered, the scars of the harsh winter fading, replaced by the sturdy frames of new homes, and the hopeful smiles of its resilient inhabitants. Amelia's tailor shop was busier than ever, a steady hum of her sewing machine, a testament to her renewed purpose. She had found joy again, not the fleeting, fragile happiness of youth, but a quiet, deep contentment rooted in resilience and self-reliance. A genuine smile, though still carrying the hint of past sorrow, had returned to her lips, more authentic than any she had worn before. One afternoon, as the golden sunlight began to cast long, dancing shadows on the dusty road, Amelia sat on her porch. The old wooden chair creaked rhythmically beneath her, a familiar comfort. She watched the sunset paint the western sky in breathtaking crimson and fiery orange hues, clouds drifting lazily like brushstrokes of a grand, ever-changing painting. The vastness of the landscape, once a symbol of her isolation, now felt like a promise of endless possibilities. It was in this tranquil moment that Ethan arrived. He didn't approach with a purpose of repair or delivery, nor did he carry firewood or food. He simply walked, his tall frame silhouetted against the setting sun, silent as always, but his gait held a subtle hesitation, a quiet weight. His eyes, usually so guarded, held a different quality today, a hint of nervousness, yet unwavering resolve, signaling that something profoundly important was about to be spoken. He slowly, deliberately, sat down beside her on the old wooden chair. The breeze, gentle and warm, carried the faint scent of wildflowers and damp earth from the nearby creek. They sat there for a long time, neither speaking a word. The silence, once a barrier between them, was now a deep connection, a profound understanding that transcended language. It was a silence filled with shared burdens, unspoken comforts, and the quiet growth of a bond forged in hardship. Amelia felt no need to fill it, no awkwardness, only a sense of profound peace in his steady presence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ethan broke the silence. His voice was deep and warm, gravelly like rolling pebbles, but utterly sincere and clear, each word carefully chosen, weighted with meaning. "Amelia," he began, his deep-set eyes looking directly into hers, without a hint of evasion, a raw honesty in their depths. "You know, my ranch needs a woman to care for it, to make it a true home, to fill its empty spaces with life and warmth. And I need someone too. Someone to share life with, to face everything together, the good times and the hard times. Someone to build a future with." He paused, took a deep, shaky breath, as if gathering all his courage, his gaze never leaving hers. Would you come and live with me?" Build a home with me? Be my wife? There were no flowery words of love, no grand, sweeping promises like Thomas had once made, promises that had crumbled into dust. Just a simple, unadorned, honest proposal like the man himself, grounded, real, and utterly dependable. But for Amelia, it was everything she needed, everything her heart truly yearned for. It was a sincere, timely offer coming from a man who had silently stood by her, helped her navigate the storms of her life, helped her find herself again, piece by painful piece. His words were not about a fleeting dream, but about a shared reality, a partnership built on respect and quiet strength. Amelia looked at Ethan, her vision blurring slightly through a fresh welling of tears. In his deep-set eyes, she saw not just steadiness and sincerity, but trustworthiness, unwavering loyalty, and a love that needed no words, a love expressed through every quiet action, every shared burden. She saw a peaceful future, undramatic, unnoisy, but full and warm, a true home built on solid ground. The tears streamed down her cheeks now, but they were tears of happiness, of liberation, of a new, profound hope. They were tears for the girl she had been, and for the woman she was becoming. She nodded, a complete, radiant smile blooming on her lips, a smile she had lost so many years ago, the first genuine, unburdened smile after so much suffering. "Yes, Ethan," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, but full of firm resolve, a quiet strength echoing his own. "I will. I would love to." Ethan's face, usually so stoic, broke into a rare but radiant smile, a genuine warmth that brightened his sun-darkened features. He gently reached out and took her hand, his calloused palm warm and trustworthy against hers. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a final glorious crimson, and the two quiet souls sat together, hand in hand, beginning a new chapter in their lives, a chapter of peace, healing, and a true love, as steadfast and enduring as the western mountains surrounding them.